Hey, are you interested in learning how to become more persuasive and more influential? If so, stay tuned because I'm here in Dubai in front of the tallest building in the world, the Burj Khalifa, and I'm going to talk to you about 5 things you can do in order to become more influential and more persuasive. Let's do this, shall we? So let's kick things off. Here's tip number 1 that I want to talk to you about. Tip number 1, if you want to be more influential and more persuasive, is to get the first yes. It doesn't matter who you're talking to or who you're dealing with. If you can get that first yes, then you're off to a great start. You can get a yes by using things called tag questions. A tag question is where you make a statement and place it in the form of a question so that the people agree with you. So as an example, you might say, hey, the weather is great today, right? Or you might say, boy, isn't Dubai beautiful? Then you're getting somebody to agree with a statement you've made, and that makes you kick things off with a great start. Let's go on to tip number 2. All right, we started out with tip number 1 where we talked about building a bridge between you and the person you're trying to persuade or influence. And we talked about using tag questions in order to accomplish that. Let's talk about the second tip, which is using a butt eraser in order to minimize a negative comment. If somebody comes to you and you want to build that bridge and engage with them, but they put up roadblocks and use negative statements in order to push you off, you can use a butt eraser in order to negate what it is they've said. If somebody comes to you and says, you know what, I thought I was gonna get a bigger raise than I got, you can use a butt eraser to kind of minimize the negative sentiment that they have. But you did get the promotion and you're gonna get a bigger raise next time we do it. By using a butt eraser, you're not trying to manipulate somebody, you're just trying to minimize some of the negativity that they're bringing into the conversation. So that's tip number 2 on how to influence people and be persuasive. Let's go on to tip number 3. All right, for tip number 3, we've got the Burj Khalifa right behind us. It's the tallest building in the world, an amazing building. I've shot some scenes from up top on the Burj Khalifa. But let's talk about tip number 3. Tip number 3 is mirroring the person it is you're speaking to. So by mirroring, we're talking about you want to mirror their behaviors, their cadence, their conversation style. By doing so, you build that bridge that we're trying to talk about doing so that they feel comfortable talking to you and so that they open up to you a little bit more. So if you want to be more persuasive and influential, whether it's working with people in your office or working with people at home, learn to mirror their cadence, their conversation, and their style, and you'll find that they open up to you a lot more easily. All right, tip number 4 for you if you want to become more influential and persuasive with anybody is to start a conversation by finding commonalities you have with the person you're talking to. Everybody on the planet has certain things in common. They all have families, they all have aspirations, they all have these things that make them human beings. Find that commonality you have with that person and start there with a conversation about that. Do you like football? Do you like opera? What do you do for vacation? When you find that commonality, build a bridge there and start with that before you move on to any other conversation. By starting with a commonality, what you end up doing is building that bridge between the person you're speaking to and yourself. So bring out the side of you that likes football if they like football. Bring out the side of you that likes opera if they like opera. Bring out the side of you that likes to read books if they like to read books. When you bring out that side of you, you build that bridge between you and the person you're talking to, and the rest goes on like magic. All right, tip number 5 in order to become more persuasive is the most important tip of all. That tip is to always work in the other person's best interest. Get inside their mind, understand their needs, and then work backwards from there so that it matches what you're expecting from them. By using that win-win formula, suddenly you're going to end up having a much better relationship with them. You will have built the bridge that we've been talking about, but most importantly, you'll have a win-win scenario. Let me tell you a quick story about a friend of mine who was interviewing at Accenture. That friend went in and the Accenture interviewer said, what do you want to be doing in 5 years? Now, my friend had a couple of choices here. He could go in and say, oh, I want your job, which is a classic answer. Or he could go in and say, you know what, I want to be running the company someday. He chose to be honest, and he said, you know what, in 5 years, I want to be retired in Mallorca. That was the turning point for him. Why? Because the Accenture interviewer was smart enough to say the following words to him. My friend said, in 5 years, I want to be retired in Mallorca. The person interviewing him said, let's make that happen. By doing that and understanding that my friend had his desires and the person interviewing him had his desires, that they could work together to make a mutually beneficial outcome. So that's the main thing I want you to leave you with, is whenever you're dealing with people and whenever you're trying to be influential and persuasive, work in a mutual best interest for both of you. By doing that win-win outcome, you'll end up being more persuasive and more influential than you ever imagined. All right, I'm back in Atlanta after taking an 18-hour flight from Dubai through Amsterdam back to Atlanta. 3 things I want you to do, action items for you. Step number 1 is, if you like what you saw today, hit the share button, because that will help your friends enjoy and appreciate some of the things that we learned in today's video. Second thing I want you to do is download the free ebook I have in the description below. It's called The Unspoken Rules of Leadership. It'll help you understand everything that we've talked about and dig deeper into some of the things that we've gone through today. And then finally, if you want to, download or read the book from my friend Tim David called Magic Words. It has a lot of the tips that we talked about today. Great book from a great author, Tim David. My name is Jamie Turner. If you like what you saw today, be sure to hit the subscribe button, give me a thumbs up, and I'll catch you next time.